American poet Ron Rash is quoted as saying, "Appalachia is a region of contrasts, beauty and desolation, wealth and poverty, culture and isolation. It is a land that is both real and mythic, inspiring the imagination and challenging the soul." I have always felt this quote spoke to the heart of not just the mountains, but the creative people inside of them. While Eastern Kentucky gets a negative view from the national media, one cannot undermine the amount of musical talent that has come from these hills. From the high mountains to the foothills, Appalachia's produced so many prolific songwriters and musicians. One cannot view, travel through, or think of the hills of Appalachia without thinking of a song. I was always inspired by writers, travelers, and singers for as long as I can remember. I still remember the first time I heard the song Cowboy Boot Hill. The song was filled with such heart, and the singer was right out of a Western novel. This singer was none other than Rob McNurlin. For the past 30 years, Rob McNurlin and his beatnik Cowboys have performed over 1,000 shows, providing a backdrop and song to all those that listen. I first met Rob in the year 2004, when Rob would play in the coffee shop I worked at in Moorhead, Kentucky. Rob always had time to talk to me about harmonicas, Bob Dylan, Western poets, and of course, great Western wear. His music spoke to others. I even had the chance to have Rob on my old TV show, Art This. Rob's songs tugged on heartstrings and spoke to me as a fellow Appalachian. I have seen Rob perform less and less as I have grown older and have had less time to travel because of work. I was surprised in 2024 when I saw a post on Rob's social media about Rob stepping away from playing music. I immediately reached out to Rob and asked him if I could tell his story in a film. So here we are, and this is my take. My name is Steven Middleton, and for the past 20 years, I've been fortunate enough to make documentary films. Through highs and lows, I have told the story of people, places, and remarkably interesting things. This is a film about a poet, a songwriter, a trailblazer, a troubadour, and most importantly, my friend. This is from the Cowboys' Boot Hill, the musical journey of Rob McNurlin.
Early morning, almost dawn. I saddled the pony I rode in on. You know I told you I must go as my cowboy boot heel taps out the rhythm of my soul.
Then let's go ahead and do it, right?
Okay. My name is Steven Middleton, and for the past 20 years, I've produced documentary films. In 2004, I worked at a coffee shop, and in that coffee shop, I had a job of making drinks, food, and running sound. And I worked with a lot of musicians running sound, some who weren't so kind to me, others who were very nice. And it was there that I met this very tall, very interesting, and very kind man named Rob McNurlin. He had a post about a year ago on his social media that he was going to retire, that he was hanging up the hat and the guitar. So I wrote him and asked him if I could produce this piece on his life and career. He said yes. So I hope this lets audience people, especially younger people, understand who Rob is and his music and his contributions, especially to all of the current people in the business, not only just Nashville, but all over the U.S. that Rob inspired, but to understand Rob's music and his value and his worth in this field after all these years.
Now here's the cowboy himself, Rob McNurlin.
Well, I grew up in Westwood, just right outside of Ashland here, and music was all my mom and dad's fault. They had the greatest record collection. Mom had a whole box of 45s from the 50s with Elvis and Chuck Berry and Little Richard, and especially those Son Johnny Cash records. That's what really got me. And Dad had Hank Williams albums and Tex Ritter, and they played them all the time. And Dad got one of those big furniture stereos. And at night we would go to bed, and he would, however many albums they would hold, 5 or 6. And I remember going to sleep listening to Johnny Cash. And at Christmas of '69, I asked for a guitar. Started taking lessons, and it's so funny because for some reason I ended up with an electric guitar, which was weird because Johnny Cash didn't play electric guitar. But so when I started lessons, the teacher was like, what do you want to learn? And I said, Johnny Cash. And so he was trying to teach me the Luther stuff, you know, dum ticka dum ticka dum ticka. And after 2 or 3 lessons, I told him, I said, look, Johnny Cash is hitting all the strings at once. And he goes, oh, you want to play chords? And I said, I don't know. I want to play like Johnny Cash, you know. It was after high school that I really, probably during high school, me and some friends started playing. Well, we never played out anywhere. We weren't good enough to play out. We weren't even really good enough to play in the basement, but we were having fun, and that's why it's called playing. And it was probably the early 90s before I really started playing a lot. And then in 93 is when I went, you know, quote, full-time music, and that's what I was doing for a living. It was the Beatnik Cowboys. I just put out my first CD, and it was pretty much those guys. Daryl James played guitar and produced the CD, and later he just wanted to play blues, and great blues musician. So when he left, Dave Prince moved from bass to guitar, and John Gostovich took over bass, and that was the lineup for, gosh, probably 10 years maybe, or close to it anyway.
There was a music store in Ashland, Kentucky called the Guitar Store, and I was going down there to try to find some cool instruments. And there was a guy down there, kind of a cowboy-looking dude. He was very tall, and he was off to one side, and he was playing a song by the band. I think he was playing The Weight. And, you know, people were just kind of listening to him, and maybe somebody grabbed a guitar, and I thought, you know, I know that song. So I grabbed a guitar and jammed with him, and that was the first time I ever met Rob. Well, he was super nice. He was just the nicest guy. You know, you meet people, and it's hard to get to know them, or they're standoffish, or they don't attempt to get to know you. But I felt like I'd known Rob for a long time from the first time I met him. And you know, music was a good connection for us, but still, he was just a nice guy. You know, it was really interesting. We had been playing together for probably a couple of years. We had a pretty tight little unit going. And the guy playing guitar at the time was a guy named Daryl Hall. And Daryl was also an engineer at the studio here in Louisa. So Daryl was like, hey, if you want to come up after midnight, we can slip in and we can record you a record and it won't cost you anything. And so we were slipping in under the cover of darkness, and we would set our drums and stuff up and get everything sounding good and just start playing. And most of the stuff on that first album, I mean, it was pretty much the second or third take because we didn't want to fool around too much. And it's pretty much dead live too. So what you're hearing there is pretty much what went down.
Dave had an old Volkswagen hippie van. One morning after setting up all night at Dave Prince's house, just having fun, in the early morning hours, we decided we were taking the hippie van on tour to California, and we did. We booked shows on the way out, you know, for the way out and on the way back, and had a blast.
Well, I got to tell you, Rob and I hung out a lot together. We'd just get together and ride around, and I had a Volkswagen van, which made me even more cool. And so we would get together and just cruise around in that van, listen to music. And he comes up to my house one morning, he said, man, I got an idea. He said, let's get in your hippie van and let's go do a tour out to California and back. And that was like getting in the Apollo rocket and going to the other planets. I mean, it was so far away, and no one we knew that was playing music had ever tried anything like that. And honestly, Rob just didn't know enough to know you can't do that. And it was great, so I said, well, let's do it. So I said, I rebuilt the motor in the van and got it ready, had a couple months, and Rob got on the phone, because this is pre-internet, and booked the tour. And one night, we just all got in the van, and we put all of our equipment in it, and we headed west.
Your favorite song?
You like the Grateful Dead?
Yeah.
No way. Do the Grateful Dead tune, Rob.
Oh yeah, while we were out there, we visited Ramblin' Jack, hung out at his house some, and it was all just living a dream.
We didn't have phones to tell us where the gigs were. We're just trying to find them. We didn't know how to do anything, but it worked. And it's just because Rob why not? Why can't we do that? And that was his attitude with a lot of things, and it was great. We had one flat tire. I mean, the whole trip to California and back in a 71 VW van with 10 million miles on it. We had a flat tire, and you know, any tire can go flat. It wasn't the van's fault. And you know, I drove the whole way because I don't trust any of those hooligans to drive my van. And Rob was the co-pilot. And you know, we'd travel, like the first time we left Ashland, and our first show was in Omaha, Nebraska, and we drove straight through. And it felt like it was about 24 hours worth of driving, and we had to play as soon as we got there, and we didn't know up from down. But again, none of us knew enough to know not to do this, and Rob had a vision. Rob was always a step ahead. When you would talk to Rob, he's like, man, I'm gonna make a record, and we're gonna make a video for it, and we're gonna do this tour. And he would plan things out, and I'd never really met anyone who did that. You know, he did the first music video I'd ever seen, and he made friends with a guy named Richard Friley. Rob was like, we'll get him to make his video. So he gets to know Friley, and they put together a video for A Lot of Good Men, and you know, he used a lot of footage from us out west. I was like, man, this is awesome. Rob has a legit music video, and that's just the way Rob was.
Oh, I was just completely ate up with it. I played and wrote and thought about music 24 hours a day.
But Rob had really transitioned a lot, because when we made the first album, we're a rock and roll band. You know, with a lot of nights we just sounded like Neil Young, and Rob was writing a lot of real powerful, just what I call rock and roll songs. But over time, Rob transitions more into that Johnny Cash, you know, Tennessee 2 thing. Rob played acoustic. He would put the paper in the string so he could get that Johnny Cash quick. You know, and I understand for Rob, it's fewer moving parts, and when you're trying to keep a band together and get people to go play, the more people you have, the more problems you have. So he'd really sparred it down.
On the Rob McNurlin documentary.
Mr. Nashville here.
The next record didn't come along until 2000. I had a stockpile of songs.
Getting ready to go back to Nashville, Tennessee, hang out with John Cash. We're going to be with Johnny Cash on Grammy Day.
John Carter Cash at the Cash Cabin Studio.
Wave the camera. That's John Carter.
The door kind of opened that I could go to the Cash Cabin, and I thought, well, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance.
Yeah, all kinds of cool toys.
You know, and there's another example. It's like, well, we're going to go record at Johnny Cash's studio. It's like, you know, whatever. Nobody goes and records at Johnny Cash's studio unless you're somebody. We drive down to Hendersonville, and we're on Johnny Cash's property, and there's Johnny Cash's car, and we're going in his studio to record. And I'll tell you what, I was scared to death. It's one thing to slip in and record in Louisa, Kentucky, but now we're at Johnny Cash's house, and we're going to record. And you know, it's that same thing. We're playing live, like John Carter would turn it on and say, go. And man, I've never experienced anything like that.
This is Dave Prince and their photographer, John Flavor, walking down the road at Johnny Cash's cabin. Ain't this cool?
Just kind of hit a record that nobody will ever hear.
Hear about this RC Cola?
Johnny Cash's RC Cola, direct from Johnny Cash's refrigerator, in Johnny Cash's cabin,
I'm about to get me
on
one.
Johnny Cash's land, in Hendersonville, Tennessee, United States of America. Oh yeah, I thought I was king of the world at that moment. Johnny Cash should be the 5th head on Mount Rushmore, so Johnny Cash is the father of my country.
Amen.
They should have left it that way. The people that misspell it can still get a hold of the record. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But,
I'm working on a building for my Lord, for my Lord. If I know I told you I must go.
hillbilly music's country music, and used to be growing up, I thought hillbilly was a derogatory term, but it's not. It's like Cajun or anything. It's something to be looked up to. And it's real music.
It just was part of your life all at once.
Yeah, and it was like, I don't know, there's something that happened, and then all of a sudden Rob's in my life, and we hit it off pretty well, being both from Eastern Kentucky. He was so sweet of a guy and loved music as much as anybody I'd ever met. And we got to end up playing music a lot together in the coming years. He called me up to ask me if I wanted to play in prison. It's like, you know, at the time I was taking every gig I could get, you know. And then the first gate opens up, like he talks to somebody, they buzz us through the first gate, we're in, the gate closes behind us, and then the next gate opens up and we're just driving through the prison like kind of yards at that point, and we get out and we're just in the middle of the general population of the prison and getting the PA out, setting everything up, and people are coming up and talking to us. All this stuff is going on. I'm just like,
6 inches of snow, 2 hours, the cock will be crowed.
No, I hit a point where I'd stopped playing in my rock band. I was playing my wife Teresa has a band called Luna and the Mountain Jets, and we were doing that. But I just wanted to do something. I just felt like I had something I needed to accomplish. So, you know, I told Rob one time, I said, you know, I'm probably not going to play with you a whole lot anymore because I'm going to try and get something going. And to not be doing that, you know, it was kind of tough because I was proud to be Rob's guitar player. And I go back and listen to those records like, man, that's me playing with Rob, and I'm really proud of the work we did. And I missed it. I missed playing with Rob, but I just really thought I needed to focus on trying to do something I wanted to do.
In 2009, I moved to Nashville in the spring. Well, I was going through a bad spot myself, which is, we won't go into that detail, but that's why I moved to Nashville, just to kind of get away from everything. And I was living with JT Cure for a couple of months, and we really helped each other. And it was just such an honor to be around him.
It was good for him and good for me too, you know. It was fun having him around, getting up and, you know, going and having some coffee, and just, it's interesting to see him, you know, as to see that side of him, because I had known him. He always had the get-up on, you know, he's always dressed to the nines, you know, shows up like he's in a show, but then seeing the Rob McNurlin as he's about to go to bed, you know, like just in his pajamas and stuff like that. It's an interesting perspective. And in the morning, you know, it's like crazy hair and, you know, like.
For a long time, we played music all the time. I mean, all the time. That's all we did, was play music.
One little boy at the big rodeo. The broncs were all busted, the lights dim low.
Live hillbillies.
Live hillbillies on stage.
Me, my dad, and a good friend of ours, Jorma Kaukonen, went to almost every Marty Stuart TV show taping. And one day, this guy came in, and Rob kind of, you know, he always looks like stage ready, you know. And he walked in, we all kind of looked at him like, who's this guy? You know, we never had met him. And so a few minutes later, Marty came through, and Marty asked Rob, said, hey, do you have a rhinestone coat in your van, you know? And he said, put it on, so that looked cool sitting in the audience, you know? So we thought, oh, that's kind of weird. And so anyway, Rob went out and he came back in, had like a real Manuel coat on, you know. I was like, wow, this guy must be somebody, you know. And so anyway, Rob came to almost every taping too. He lived here then, that time. And so we just kind of got to be buddies, hanging out at Marty Stuart TV tapings. And he pretty much became one of my very best friends, you know. So, and yeah, he actually, our last house, he actually recorded a couple albums in our basement, you know. And JT Cure and Caton and Kenny Vaughn and those guys come over and played on it. And it was just, yeah, everything he does, he keeps it simple but quality.
So I'd had Manuel start making me some rhinestone outfits, and I get invited to his birthday party. But there was Caton kind of playing in the house band. I concocted the idea, well, I'm gonna do a new record and I want Caton to play steel guitar on it. And Caton's wife had passed away, and Caton told me, he said, where are you living down here? Because we were playing a lot of music together by then. And I told him, he said, well, anytime, he said, I got plenty of room, my wife's passed away. And so I ended up living at Caton's.
He got into playing with Caton Roberts, and then you joined in with them at that time, right?
I did, yeah. And Kenny was playing with us some. Chris Scruggs would be in and out with us. We've got these great photos of us playing down at Layla's all together, and it was awesome for me to get to meet Caton and get to have that experience. You know, as a musician, to get to play with somebody like that, and a link to the history of the music that you love was really cool. And on top of that, he was just such an awesome guy. One of the funniest guys I'd ever met. And to travel with him, because we traveled a little bit together, it was always a good time. I always look forward to those shows.
Rob had sort of moved into Caton's house sort of as a roommate and musical co-conspirator, which I think was great for Caton. You know, his wife Iva Lee and he had played music together for so long. And one of my concerns for Caton when she passed away was, you know, losing that musical connection. And it seemed that when that door kind of closed, this door opened up with Rob. And Caton hadn't really been on the road or toured since, you know, Hank Snow had passed away, which had been, you know, maybe 10 years at this point. And I feel that friendship between Caton and Rob McNurlin sort of gave Caton a sort of second wind in a new chapter in his career. All of a sudden, Caton was out working the road and he was playing shows around town, and it was, you know, usually him and Rob, and early on JT Cure, Kentucky boy who plays with Chris Stapleton on bass, and then a little later on it was Roger Carroll from Hank Snow's Rainbow Ranch Boys. So that was through Caton that I got to know Rob.
He taught me, I know the first time we actually sat, not recording on my album, just sat down to jam, I started playing some Hank Snow song, and I didn't make it through half the verse. And he goes, now son, and real nice, in a very kind way, he said, you're leaving out some chords. And I said, well, you're gonna have to teach them to me. And he just perked up. He just knew if I was willing to learn, you know, that was great. And he did. He taught me passing chords that I'd never even heard of or thought of. And I know I came back up here, they had a guitar show on this stage here. And I came back up for it, and I was just sitting behind the booth, and one of my friends, Richie Collins, was sitting there with me, and I was playing something, and he looked at me and goes, wait a minute. He said, Rob McNurlin don't know those chords. What happened to Rob McNurlin? And I said, well, Caton's teaching me a lot.
They had a really special bond, and it was great for Caton too, you know, after Hank died. Rob kind of kept him on the road and kept him going and kept him lively, you know. I think Caton probably wouldn't have lived near as long as he did if he hadn't been out with Rob, and Rob keeping him playing and keeping him in the music business, you know. And I think Rob was, you know, a really good friend to Caton and really helped him out a whole lot. And Caton knew that, and Caton appreciated it. And so did Caton's family, I think, you know. And they had a really special bond, and they did a lot of great music together. And Rob even, I'm sure you've probably heard about, but he even produced a record on Caton. And had Marty Stuart come in and play on it. And me and Marty got together and collaborated, and I'd do some graphic design stuff. And we did the cover for it and all the artwork for the CD and everything. And Marty took the pictures for the cover. You know, he's a great photographer too. And Rob really stepped up and just really took care of Caton the last few years with a lot of, you know, kept his legacy, really helped with it, you know.
Hello, this is Rob McNurlin. Thanks for tuning in to the Rob McNurlin Ranch Party. Just wanted to let you know that starting in November, we got some all new episodes, one even featuring the legendary folk singer, Ramblin' Jack Elliott. A lot more surprises for you. Log into robmcnurlin.com to learn more. Thanks again. Me and Richard stayed friends all the time, and so we wanted to do a TV show. And we made a couple of pilots, And so we started trying to get some sponsors for some money, and we did. Richard and also a guy named Brad Bear helped film when Richard was out of town. And we put the TV show, you know, it was on 3 years, I think.
From the Country Music Heritage Hall at the Highlands Museum and Discovery Center in Ashland, Kentucky on the Country Music Highway, Route 23. It's the Rob McNurlin Ranch Party, starring Rob McNurlin and his beatnik cowboy. Caton Roberts, Kenny Vaughn, J.T. Cure with Kim Johnson, Bobby Taylor, Andrew Dunlap, and Les Worley. Plus today's special guest. I'm your announcer, Chance Martin. And now, here's the star of the show, Rob McNurlin.
There's no rules on the road. That's why the road rules. Now there's fools on the road, but the road can't be.
But you know, who else? It's so foreign of a thing to me to be like, I'm gonna make a TV show. Or I might have that idea, but nothing ever happens to it. He saw the whole thing through. He just did it all, and it was a really cool thing to be a part of and to see it, you know. And Caton was involved with some of those. It's almost like he could see the whole thing from beginning to end, and from our perspective, we just kind of showed up, and he's like, okay, let's play this song, and we'd play that. Like, good take, yep, all right. Then we'd play another song, and then we'd maybe change clothes, and then he just knew all this stuff to make it work. But he is always he was always making films and had an eye for that kind of thing too.
Why is the phone ringing? I'm busy. I'm trying to do a show. Hello, Ranch Party. Rob speaking. Well, hey, baby, how are you? What are you into today? Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we're having a good time down here playing a little bit of music. Oh, the show went fine last night. It went fine. While we were playing, this three-legged dog walked into the bar and said, I'm looking for the man who shot my paw. Yeah, I love you too, baby. I'll see you later. All right, welcome back to the Rob McNurlin Ranch Party. Thanks for tuning in, and we have a very special guest today, Mr. Marty Stuart. Marty, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Rob, heard all about your show. Cousin Kenny's been telling me about it.
Well, bless his
Saw
heart.
one of your DVDs, and I had to get in on it. That's
Well,
all
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Stylized.
Oh,
It's
yeah, we're
looking good.
sparkling today.
Yeah. Did he win?
Yeah, we worked hard on those shows, and I think they came out pretty good. You know, I really enjoyed it. It was me and Caton and J.T. Cure and Rob, I think, just the four of us. It was really fun, and he had some good guests on there. You know, he had Marty Stuart and Larry Cordell and all kinds of folks. So. Well, I was playing with Marty Stuart and his fabulous superlatives in some outdoor show in East Kentucky on a nice night. It was well attended, lots of hillbillies there, and he kind of appeared into my world there. And I remember, I saw this guy's cool. He cuts a, when he walks in to wherever you are, you immediately notice him because he's put together and he's has his own sort of aura about him. And I thought, this guy's cool. And then Marty must have known him. I'm not sure, but Marty got him up on stage that night.
Where are you, Robert? Come on, son. Got a fine-looking cowboy suit on.
they played a song by Rob called Is Your Name on the Rock and the Roll. And they tore it up. Marty played the mandolin and Rob played his acoustic guitar, and Rob sang, and the audience went crazy, you know. And I was like, this guy's different. And then, you know, the more I got to know him, you know, I realized that he, not only was he into old country music and bluegrass music and knew a lot about all that stuff, but he was also into Jerry Garcia and Bob Dylan. He knew a lot about that stuff, and I was like, oh, all right, I can relate to this dude. I like him. And we've been friends ever since. I think it was J.T. Cure on bass, and Caton Roberts on steel, and me on electric, Rob. Sometimes Chris Scruggs played with us on various instruments, I'm sure. And you know, we played some shows, and yeah, we've worked together in the studio. And
has Rob been easy to work with?
Oh, what do you think? Yeah, he's the easiest to work with. Well, you know, the thing about Rob is he knows his music, he has his style, and when he steps up to the mic in the studio with his guitar and to sing, he's ready. There's no guesswork there. He's already ready to go. You hit the button and he lays his part down and it's done. And so it's pretty easy to work with him because he knows his style and he understands what, you know, his own music really well, and it's fun and it's easy and it always sounds good because he's good.
Yeah, Kenny he's played on my most recent 3 albums, and he produced the 2 latest albums. He produced, played on them, and actually all of Marty's band played on the 2 most recent ones, you know. But that 10 of the Wicked I was just talking about may be my best record. I mean, I really love the songs on there, and the musicianships on it's just unbelievable.
I mean, I think it's human nature that if you played in a band and someone takes your place, you're going to go look at him and go, well, how good's that guy? Well, I look over and it's Kenny Vaughn. It's like, well, that guy's pretty doggone good. I couldn't tune Kenny's guitar. He went to Nashville, and again, his way of getting in with people, and all of a sudden, he and Marty Stuart are best friends. And he's got Kenny Vaughn, and he's got J.T. Cure playing, which he knew J.T. from back in the Moorhead days. He'd known J.T. for a long time. But Rob just continued to play with better and better people.
I remember being in a building in Nashville. I looked out the window and there was this guy all by himself just walking down the street. And he had on the most gorgeous coat. Porter Wagner would have been jealous of it. It was fully rhinestone, beautiful. Just by himself. I went, who's that character? And I come to find out it was Rob McNurlin. I remember we did an old Johnny Cash song a song that John and Bob Dylan wrote called Wanted Man on Rob's TV show, so I love that performance.
Man in this textile, go ahead. Had all that I wanted,
of a lot of things I've had,
and a lot more than I needed of some things that turned out bad.
I got sidetracked.
And sometimes it was reruns. We didn't have 3 years worth of shows, but yeah, we had some, you know, great stuff. I mean, and now there again, I was blessed with guests. I mean, Marty Stuart and Larry Cordell and John Carter Cash. Just blessed with such great guests. And there's a whole list of them that I'm drawing blanks on now. But
so when I first reached out to you, you had a Facebook post that made me think you were retiring from music.
Well, I probably wrote the post wrong, but just because of some family situation, my dad passed away, and somebody needs to take care of the property because Mom's in a rest home, and plus they were raising my great nephew. Now, you know, I could abandon all of that and go on the road playing music, but I wouldn't feel good about myself if I did that. So I'm going to play music around here and occasionally travel, but I just can't like I used to. I can't be on the road for 3 or 4 weeks because I want to be able to visit my mom as long as I can, help my little nephew all he needs, and take care of the home place. So.
In the courtroom for the judge's gavel falls, defended the innocent medicine and righted many wrongs. But my books of law were traded for a song. I might have studied medicine and healed my fellow man, picked the lame and crippled up, helped make them stand. Is there someone dying that should be standing strong? 'Cause my healing powers were traded for a song.
Do you remember? My dad worked at a steel mill and Johnny Cash sang. Now, you know, to me, they were like the same though. And so when I got into it, it was purely for music. And then, of course, I started trying to make money and things. But and then eventually you got to the point, oh yeah, you want to be a rock star like everybody does. And then common sense kind of drifts in that not many people make it as a rock star, and especially the kind of music that I pick, because I can play it with a rock and roll band, I can play it with a country band, but I'm really a folk singer pretty much. And I realized that there wasn't that many rock star folk singers, so I was just trying to make a living at it, and I did. I managed to do that.
You ain't gold. All you are, girl, is flesh and bone. You're the best that these eyes have seen.
When I moved to Nashville, I never planned on moving back here, but circumstances brought me back here, and this is home. No matter where I've ever went in the world, you know, this is still home. I never could distinguish, and I run into this a lot. Some people say, well, you play secular music, you know, you don't play all gospel music. And some people that, you know, some Christians, that's not right to them. But I don't see the difference in it. You know, when I read the Bible, there's all kinds of stories about love, hate, murders. You know, yes, the gospel is there, and that's the main reason it's there, but life is in those too, just like in the Psalms. You know, those old folk songs. So to me, I'm not saying they're all gospel songs to me, but all of it's important. It all just deals with life. If anybody remembers it, it'll be amazing to me. It still amazes me if somebody shows up and knows one of the songs. The trick is, I mean, it's not going to matter to us anyway, you know. I mean, I'm 60, I'll soon be 61. I have a long run, you know, I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning, you know, but now I'm just a hillbilly on my way to heaven.
I was born in the country, then I moved to town. I was born in the country when I moved to town.
The first ever Rob McNurlin promo picture. It's us recording at the Cash Cabin studio. It was February 14th of 2000. So, whole big spread and off-label photos. Okay, here's one. So I did the soundtrack to a movie about bullfrogs in Kentucky. And so here's the promo for that. So I went to England with Dave Prince and his wife Luna. Here's a poster from that. The Blue Cat Cafe, wherever that was. You know, you just think of the theme to Barney Miller or Sanford and Son or something, huh? Hank's nose toupee. What more can you say, you know? The reason I ended up with this, when I was living in Nashville, I got wind that a lady who ran an antique shop had some Hank Snow stuff. And I said, well, do you have anything else Hank Snow? She looked at me really weird and said, I got a toupee. And I'm like, now you're talking. And so the toupee came in the original shipping box, and it came with a box of the little stick-on things, the little double-sided things you stick them to your head with. But also in the box was this unsigned check and these keys and bullets. And there's a couple of famous stories about Hank Snow using his gun. You have to look those up yourself, but well, he tried to shoot his son one time too. But anyway, and so I got all that. And since then, a good friend of mine, Doug Hudson, who ended up with all the paperwork from Hank's office, asked me, he said, you know what year he bought the toupee? And I said, yeah, it's got the mailing thing on it. And so he found me the return, the check. And so I have it, it's downstairs. I have the check where he bought the toupee.
Yeah, and even a little bit kind of the odd part of history and leaning into that kind of stuff that people don't really necessarily think about. The whole case that he had made for the toupee, and lights up. We played a show. I think the first time I saw that was when we played a show over at the American Legion here, and he brought it out and had it sitting on stage.
But he does. He collects all these real cool, weird memorabilia pieces, and I could absolutely see him having a little traveling freak show.
I got the hillbilly blues, no cure can be found.
A great, he makes these big wooden Indians and bears and stuff, carves them with magnificent work.
Billy's hanging around. Pick my guitar till I break the string. Pick my guitar.
One of your own, Rob McNurlin.
And I don't remember when I first met Rob. It's been that long. I do know that when I started Wood Songs, Rob was the very first artist I brought on the show, because we only had one station airing it at the time, and Rob was a friend. We were already friends at the time, and I was like, I want to try this, what do you think? And so he came on the very first broadcast of Wood Songs. Rob's music is sort of a tapestry of many things, all threaded through Appalachia in many ways. He grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, but he was heavily influenced by the imagery of early Bob Dylan and the music of Johnny Cash, Woody Guthrie especially. And all of this, I think, as many artists do, they allow that to gestate inside their musical heart until they come out with something original. And Rob was able to turn all that into something original.
Couldn't forget the first time I met Rob McNurlin. So we had Ramblin' Jack Elliott was playing, and Rob drove Ramblin' Jack up. Now, Jack had a horrible, horrible cold. Rob, of course, being Rob, said, let me help out. And so he did the show. I'm not sure how Rob would characterize himself, but to me he represents a certain, without putting a label on it, he certainly represents a certain tradition. And I think that as an artist, he's a pure soul. There's never, he's just a pure soul. I mean, everything he does, it's real. And I think that honesty as an artist is what I would describe him as. In a just world, Rob McNurlin would be a household name.
I think, in show business, and probably I'd say in any business, there's moments where, it comes at you in waves. And maybe better put with music, because of the cultural connection that music has to our lives. It comes at us in eras. Rob's career and who he plays for, and then how he presents his music to an audience sort of evolve over time. You know, there was that moment when he was talking about retiring and then sort of almost denied making the claim, saying, well, what I meant was I was gonna scale back and reorganize. But sometimes you gotta do that, to not be afraid to reinvent themselves. And sometimes you have to burn it all down to the ground and rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
Well, you know, Rob has always, like I said, he's been one of my heroes. He was one of the first heroes that I had in the music business. Like I said, I remember watching him on TV from a really young age and thinking, man, that's got to be the coolest job in the world. He's left a big influence on my life and my music in more ways than one could probably realize. Even outside of the music, though, Rob McNurlin as a man is top shelf. You're not going to find a better human being anywhere you look. And that spoke volumes to me even more than the music. Rob's legacy is going to be huge. I mean, throughout this region of Appalachia, eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, southern Ohio, of course it's going to be huge. But he's also been so much more in so many other places, you know, all across the United States. Rob McNurlin has toured, traveled, and performed. Bummed a meal here and there and kept going, you know.
I remember calling Rob a cowboy poet. He just blew me away. There was something about his authenticity, the sound of his voice, the way that he played, the way that he told the stories that he played. It reminded me of just like, you know, Jack Kerouac in a cowboy hat. And God, it was deep. It was just deep, just like reading Kerouac. But there is something, yeah, when you're around him, pay attention. Like, I feel like when you're around him, you're chosen. Hear whatever he has to say. That's just what I believe.
Retirement's a big word. I don't believe it. He'll be back. Well, you know, I've got to know him fairly well over the years, and you know, he always took care of his mom and his dad, and you know, still taking care of his dad's mules, and he's the father figure for his nephew, and he takes care of him, and he's a good influence on his nephew, I do believe, and you know, he's just a stand-up character.
He's kind of a spiritual advisor to a lot of people, honestly. I mean, he can, I wouldn't say he's a preacher, but he can lead a service at church and everybody gets something out of it. And even I've seen him in honky-tonks, dive places, whatever, and he'll get up and sing gospel songs. And when he does, it gets quiet, they all stop dancing, they stop, and you could hear a pin drop, and you know, he touches people with it.
The thing I love about Rob, when I first came to Nashville, if you sat down at the table of the family of country music, it was important that you, at that time, that you bring your culture with you. Wherever you come from, you had to bring who you were to the table and add into the spice of country music. It's pretty much a homogenized table these days. But the thing I love about Rob, he carries that square piece of Kentucky with him everywhere he goes. And you cannot go out and become a folk hero for any amount of money. You have to earn it, you have to live it, and that's what you have to be every day of your life to become that. And when I think of Rob, I know that in truth he's a folk hero. His music, his art, everything from his chainsaw art to the songs he writes to his performances to everything about the shows he stages and the people he hangs out with, you know, he's a folk hero. He represents the best of Kentucky and actually the best in all of us.
Rob was a big influence on all of us, and me in particular, in that it was, he was influential as far as being a musician and a songwriter and a performer, but also he was influential for me as just being a man and being a good person too. You know, called me for gigs when I didn't have a lot going on. And he always has kept in touch with me on playing, and he'll still call me even though he knows I can't play it. He'll still call me on certain stuff, and it's very sweet.
And Rob's not trying to play popular music. He's just playing music that he believes in. And you know, and you limit your crowd when you do that, but I think the satisfaction is much greater. And I think Rob has played the music he wants to play, and he doesn't care what the consequence was of that. And he's stuck to what he thought was true. And again, I've been in cover bands where you play other people's songs for 4 hours a night, and you might make X amount of dollars. But if you go play for 60 minutes and play songs that you helped create, that means a whole lot more, and it doesn't matter what the money pays. And Rob always gave me that opportunity. And again, he never told me what guitar parts to play. And it's just been a thrill. And I learned a whole lot from Rob McNurlin about not only music, but just how to be a good person and treat people right. And Rob does that all the time.
I'll go back, I'm a very blessed person. Now sure, I wanted the tour bus and the big tours and rich and famous and all that. I didn't get that. And now I have to think to myself, either that's not the hand that God dealt me, or he dealt me that hand and I played it wrong. Now, I don't know which that is. I was always blessed with all of these people that were willing to help me, and most of the time I didn't have any money to pay them. But it just, so, I mean, if you count success by friends, I'm the wealthiest person in the world. And so I'm proud of the records I've done. I'm proud of the friends I've made, the shows I've played. And I have, as far as a legacy, I don't know that I have one. It still surprises me when somebody knows who I am.
Come to mind in the misery.
It is said that a person's integrity is measured when no one is watching. This has been true for the career of Rob McNurlin. As the world keeps on spinning, time seems to move at an even faster pace. Yet, a few things remain the same. Rob McNurlin and his music is more than just carefully crafted verses and melodies. We are left with the enduring spirit of a man who carries his home in everything he touches. From the Cowboys' boot hill, where the rugged hills of East Kentucky meet the open plains of the American West, Rob has woven a tapestry of tradition, storytelling, and timeless sound. Rob's journey reminds us that music is more than entertainment. It is connection. It connects us to our roots, to the struggles and triumphs of those who came before us, and to the unbroken spirit of those who choose to carry the torch forward. His music is a bridge between worlds, blending the soul of Appalachia with the dust and grit of cowboy trails, proving that authenticity transcends borders. In the entertainment world, where your success is measured by album sales, streams, and Billboard fame, Rob McNurlin did not make the so-called big time. What Rob did achieve was something far larger and greater, as he blazed his own trail, made lifelong friends, and has left an impression on everyone. The road Rob travels on has not always been easy, but it is honest. His songs are a testament to the power of staying true to oneself, to honoring where you come from while carving your own path. As Rob has shown us, the Cowboys' boot hill is not just a place. It is an idea, a rhythm, a heartbeat that echoes in the hearts of all who love and live by the music. A career that has touched many lives continues to form a new story. And so, as the sun dips below the Kentucky hills, we leave this story as we began, with a man, a guitar, and a song. A song that reminds us of who we are, where we have been, and the endless journey ahead. Thank you, Rob McNurlin, for sharing your honesty, your music, and your journey. May the music play on and be tapped out by the rhythm of our souls.
Just what I'll find there, I don't know. As my cowboy boot heel taps out the rhythm of my soul. I may find danger, I may find strangers dressed as angels unaware. I may find grief, I may find peace. Girls with raven hair. Hello? Yeah, this is Rob. I'll tree. Yeah, I'd love to play the show if I got the date open. What are you looking at? God will protect me as I sleep. My Indian blankets will keep me from the cold. As my cowboy boot heel taps out the rhythm of my soul. It's a mighty, mighty long way to glory, but you're bound to go. No matter
what is there to say about Rob McNurlin? Love you, Rob. Love everything about you.
He's a master of getting the listener to pay attention. And I think that's what separates an artist from a wannabe.
It's weird because I held my first seat, but I didn't have sunglasses on. I got mine on too. But you ain't growling.